Hello and welcome to the Smile Code, where we dive into the art of creating happiness by decoding the challenges of everyday life. I'm your host, Dr. AC Quadu, and today we're uncovering one of the most fascinating puzzles of human behavior, and that is why we defend our beliefs as if our lives depend on it. You've seen it before. Heated arguments about politics, religion, or even something as simple as which way the toilet paper should hang. It's not just about who's right or wrong. It's about identity. It's about safety. And it's about survival. What if I told you that this instinct to defend our beliefs comes from the same part of the brain that lights up when we're in physical danger? Well, buckle up, because we're diving deep into the neuroscience of belief, exploring stories of wars, fears, and everyday struggles, and of course, what it all means for your pursuit of happiness. So let's start with the science. In our brains, the amygdala, our so-called fear center, lights up when we sense danger. This could be a lion in the wild, or surprisingly, someone simply challenging our core beliefs. Now think about it. Why do you feel defensive when someone says your religion, your political stance, or your favorite movie is wrong? It's because your brain interprets it as a threat, not just to your opinion, but to your identity. Now here's where it gets wild. Researchers at USC found that when deeply held beliefs are challenged, the brain's defense mechanisms, those meant to protect us from physical harm, kick into high gear. It's not logical. It's primal. This is why debates about religion have led to wars. Take the Crusades as an example, a centuries-long conflict fueled by perceived threats to identity, to morality, and survival. When people feel their beliefs are under attack, they'll fight tooth and nail, sometimes literally. The Crusades are a powerful example of what happens when deeply held beliefs collide. For centuries, these wars were fought under the banner of religion, with each side convinced they were defending not just their faith, but their very identity. But the Crusades were just the beginning. History is filled with examples of wars and conflicts driven by identity and belief. Let's explore a few more. Take the 30 Years' War in Europe during the 17th century, a devastating conflict that began as a religious dispute between Catholics and Protestants, but quickly escalated into a larger power struggle. Millions lost their lives, all because of a perceived threat to identity and to beliefs. Or consider the English Civil War, which was not just about politics, but also a clash of religious ideologies between Anglicans and Puritans. It tore the country apart, showing how religion and politics can amplify feelings of existential threat. Now fast forward to the 20th century, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is a stark and current example of how disputes over land intertwined with historical and religious identity can create entrenched, ongoing struggles, unfortunately. And then there's the partition of India in 1947, when British India was divided into India and Pakistan. Religious identity, Hindu versus Muslim, played a central role. The result? Mass migrations, communal violence, and deep scars on both sides. Even smaller scale events like the Salem witch trials remind us how fear and challenges to religious orthodoxy can spiral out of control. And in cases like the Rwandan genocide, oh my gosh, which was an identity-based division. Though ethnic, not religious, it triggered unimaginable violence. And let's not forget the Cold War, which wasn't a traditional war, but an ideological battle between capitalism and communism. Though secular, it illustrates how conflicting belief systems can polarize entire nations and create decades of tension. In each of these conflicts, the pattern is the same: deeply ingrained beliefs and identities perceived as being under threat. And when fear kicks in, logic and empathy are often left far behind. So the real question is, how can we break the cycle of conflict in our personal lives? Because let's be honest, while most of us won't start a war, we face smaller battles every day when our beliefs are challenged. Let's bring it closer to home with dental phobia. Dental phobia is one of the most common fears, and it's a perfect example of how our brain's threat response works. For many people, it's not just about the drill or the chair. It's the fear of vulnerability, of handing control over to someone else. Let me share a story about a patient I'll never forget. He hadn't been to the dentist in years. He would rather have died than set foot in a dental office, and I'm not exaggerating. That's exactly what he told me. He only came in because his ex-wife dragged him in there. His eyes were swollen shut, and his entire face was puffed up from a severe infection in his mouth. When I examined him, it was clear he was teetering on the edge of sepsis, a life-threatening condition caused by the infection spreading through his body. This wasn't just a dental issue anymore. It was a matter of survival, and yet his fear was so strong that he had ignored the warning signs for months. When I asked him about his fear, he opened up about a traumatic experience from his childhood at a dentist. That memory had stayed with him, convincing his brain that dental care was a threat to his very being. Now, I had to manage his infection very quickly, which involved a round of IV antibiotics at the local hospital. But here's the fascinating part. As soon as we validated his feelings, showed empathy, and reassured him that we would work at his pace, his fear slowly began to ease. He ended up completing treatment and over time became one of our most committed patients. Now, this story shows just how powerful the brain's threat response can be, even when the threat is something as essential as medical care. It also reminds us that empathy and understanding can be just as powerful in breaking down these barriers. And let's talk about public speaking for a minute. Why is it the number one fear for so many people? I guess because standing in front of an audience feels like an identity threat. Your brain tells you, if I mess up, I'll lose respect, I'll lose credibility, or even belonging. It feels as life-threatening as being chased by a predator. Now, even small arguments like debating whether pineapple belongs on a pizza can trigger that same defense mechanism. Why is that? It's because it's not really about the pizza, is it? It's more about what that opinion says about you. It's about your identity. So we've talked about wars and conflict, dental phobia, public speaking, and personal disagreements. But the real question is, how can we break the cycle of tension in our personal lives? Because let's be honest, while most of us won't start a war, we face smaller battles every day when our beliefs are challenged. So what can we do about it? How do we stop treating every disagreement as a battle for survival? Well, first we need to recognize the trigger. When you feel your heart race or your palms sweat in an argument, pause and ask yourself, am I really in danger, or is this just my brain overreacting? Secondly, practice empathy. The next time someone challenges your belief, try this. Instead of preparing your counter argument, ask them why they believe what they do. Listening doesn't mean agreeing, it means understanding. Finally, remember this: evolving your beliefs isn't a betrayal of your identity. It's a sign of growth. Harriet Tubman and Yaa Asantewaa, both powerful historical figures, challenged the beliefs of their time and inspired generations to rethink freedom and justice. So here's how you can apply this in your life. First, self-awareness. When you feel defensive, pause and breathe and ask yourself, what am I protecting right now? Secondly, reframe challenges. Instead of seeing belief challenges as threats, view them as opportunities to learn and to grow. Thirdly, engage in difficult conversations. Rather than lashing out, start with curiosity. Say something like, "That's interesting. Tell me more." And finally, embrace growth. Remember, it's okay to change your mind. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you wiser. Imagine a world where we all did this. There'd be fewer wars, there'd be more connection, and yes, there would be more happiness. That's the power of breaking the identity paradox. Thank you for joining me today on The Smile Code. If this episode made you think or reflect, share it with someone who could use a new perspective. And here's your challenge for the week. Notice when you feel defensive. Pause, breathe, and choose curiosity instead. So until next time, keep smiling, keep growing, and remember the journey to happiness starts with understanding yourself and understanding others. See you soon.